What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to T3G. This is the Tangents Podcast, and today we're doing kind of a regular podcast, but also kind of a very different thing, something we've never done before. We're going to go ahead and do a live reaction to DC Fandome, well, like the first chunk of it, and then next week we're going to follow it up with probably a little more edited version of the same thing, and we're going to be doing, like I said, reactions to the news and the panels and everything that's going on, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoy.
In breaking news, we've received reports of an explosion somewhere north of the city.
We're still waiting for the police to confirm if there are any victims. This story is evolving rapidly. Please bear with us.
We heard this really loud boom. There was smoke everywhere.
Emergency services have confirmed that they've discovered a body buried in the wreckage. We're still waiting for further details.
It appears that a large portion of the building has actually
In
collapsed.
international news, an explosion rocked Gotham City earlier today.
We are now able to confirm that billionaire philanthropist Bruce Wayne is
Dead? No Man's Land? No Man's Land. That would be good. Arkham No Man's Land? Arkham City No Man's Land?
If you're watching this,
It's gotta be.
I'm dead.
Although it's not Kevin Conroy.
Code black.
Jason? No,
This
other
message
Jason.
was automatically triggered when I destroyed the cave and everything it contained. We both know it won't take long for Gotham's criminals to realize the Batman is gone. And you can't count on the GCPD. Haven't trusted us since Jim died. Gotham will need its protectors more than ever. I'm leaving you the Belfry as base of operations. Some of the technology is outdated, but it has the gear you need and all of my files.
That's
You've always had my back
Damien.
when I needed you.
That was Dick.
I know you'll keep Gotham safe. Good luck. And goodbye.
That's not Kevin Conroy's voice, though. Is it an Arkham book? Again? Batgirl, of course. Damien. Jason. Yeah, see, I would have thought other Jason. Demon. Ooh, a 3D map. Fast travel. What's he gonna do? Teleport there? Oh no, I guess he does. Oh, what is this costume? Good move, though. It's a good costume. Thank God it's not the stupid current one. That was a good look for him in New 52. Fuck the cloaking technology? Weird, some shit might be out of date. It's definitely Arkham, because that's from the Arkham Knight, the lighting thing. Maybe it'll be like a new game. Gotham Knights. I was just gonna say it'll be a Gotham series. Since it's not about Arkham specifically. Yeah, Gotham Knights. Makes sense. But wait, he's not really
no
dead.
one talks about them.
Ooh, the owls. The Court of Owls.
Not a whisper word is said.
Oh yeah, there was a rhyme in the comic.
For if you try to cross them, then
And he's not dead because they took him.
Dead.
Talon.
They took him. They took him, and he's going to be a Talon. Fair enough.
I'm Patrick Redding.
I'm Fleur Marty.
We're both from Warner Brothers Games Montreal, and we're both thrilled to finally be able to show you Gotham Knights.
You may be wondering why we chose to tell this story and focus on these characters.
We wanted to shake up the status quo of Gotham City. We wanted to see what happens when you take away the safety of Batman's presence and then find out what happens. What happens when these heroes, the Bat Family, Nightwing,
These guys
Batgirl,
must not
Red
read
Hood, and Robin have to
DC
step
Comics
up
because
and take
they
on the role
do
of
their
new
own
protectors
shit
of Gotham
all the time.
What's really exciting about Gotham Knights is that you, the player, will be able to grow these characters how you see fit. You get to see how you would step up and become Gotham's protector. You're not trying to become the new Batman. You're becoming your own badass superhero.
And as a bonus, we brought gameplay footage. This is
I swear to
captured
God, they
in
don't read
engine
comics.
from a recent build.
They have no idea how
we
this
just
all
can't wait
works.
for you to see this. Take a look.
I mean, it's. I mean, it's not Rockstar, so it's not a. It's was it Rockstar? Am I crazy now? Whoever made the Arkham series. It wasn't. It's not them producing it, so it's not an Arkham game. But I can't imagine the gameplay is going to be that much different. I like the. That looks like it could be a mech.
Belfry,
Bat cycle.
Elliott Center is covered in ice. Whatever's causing this is localized at the
Oh,
top.
Elliott Center.
Definitely
Elliott.
freeze his handiwork. You'd best hurry.
That's what the bike's for.
Yeah, what is the bike for? It looks like it could be a mech. Those the front spokes don't look like spokes; they look like arms. Little RC action. See Transformers. I mean, the gameplay's. I mean,
all units at
riding
Elliott
a
Center.
motorcycle
Air
is-
support inbound.
Okay.
Hostiles opening fire on
Oh,
upper
it's
floors.
third person.
Air support, can you do a fly around? On it.
It's not bad. Her cape is weird.
We need a way to get through that ice. We need to get past these
Why from
guys
some?
first.
Wait.
Looks like Freeze is back with a vengeance.
Different
If he wants a
costume.
fight, he'll get it.
Cosmetics makes sense.
We need a tank to get through that much ice.
Yeah, that looks to be more like the classic-ish Batgirl costume. What is this camera angle nonsense? Can you knock this one? That's some jarring shit. Hold on. You better be able to control the camera. It's like I'm playing a third party, kind of smash 'em up. Right now, I'm playing Darksiders. Well, third person.
Montoya here. Heard you're down there having some fun.
But you
Fun's
can
one
control
word
the
for it.
camera angle.
Just a heads up, that chopper's under orders to fire on anything that moves inside.
Why is her logo's missing? Now, if that's a cosmetic thing, hold on.
The storm is getting worse. You need to hurry.
I'm gonna turn this down.
The GCPD chopper
Alfred's
made
live,
that
of course.
part easy.
If the cosmetics are in relation to like comic book stories, there was a comic book story during New 52 where she like
This is all up to code.
quit the Bat team basically, and she took off the logo. Because right now, I don't know if you can turn the camera manually. Because when it goes to the front, it doesn't look like the logo is yellow. It just looks like it's not, like it looks like the outline's there, but it's not filled in.
If anyone asks, I meant to do that.
I won't say a word.
And that looks like it's an Arkham Knight Robin costume.
Wars were still going on when
Or
Freeze
Arkham.
came
Was it
through.
Arkham Knight? Whichever the last Arkham game was.
They didn't stand a chance.
Unless it's supposed to be something. What the fuck? Oh, you can choose when it's a team. Okay. Okay, that's interesting. It's an interesting mechanic. It looks like it's a Red Robin.
This will only take a second.
It's a play on the Red Robin costume, which I'm okay with. But it's kind of weird looking. It's almost looking like it's trying to be Batman, which makes sense because it's Damian. Oh, bad guys can have friendly fire.
No precision.
This is interesting. This is an interesting game.
Dad, you're it.
This is interesting. So, I'm not... I mean, here's the thing. Will I play it? Of course. At some point, I will play it. I just don't know. I mean, I don't buy games day one kind of thing. It's not bad. And ironically, this background was randomly generated since I have my backgrounds on random. So we're just going to go back to the Fandome site, and it's probably going to play its little intro. Oh, no.
I see the weather machine. Ready with the disruptor.
That thing's drawing so much power.
Yeah, I don't know. The costumes are weird. I mean, if obviously there's cosmetics, because the trailer had a completely different Batgirl costume and a completely different Robin costume. So there's cosmetic elements, which kind of goes back to the Spider-Man game. Oh, no, it's there. Oh, oh, that's gross. They made her logo look like the Batman logo, which is, I think, pretty current right now. Ugh, gross. Mr. Freeze flies now? Oh, he's a cyborg. He's in a mech suit. Okay. Not like against that.
When this disruptor goes off, trust me.
Irrelevant. I already have.
The animation's good. The animation reminds me of it's like a good comic book movie. Like if this was just, this is one of those things. It's possible I might just watch this in cutscenes.
See about that.
So it shows the logo. Yeah, you could probably switch mid-fight, which would not be bad. It'd be interesting. It's an interesting mechanic. I would prefer if it was a co-op thing. If you could play with somebody remotely, and you each take one character. Because I would imagine you could easily make a core mechanic of a game like this that you have to have two characters playing at the same time, because Batman's not there, so he's not there to like be the one, so everybody kind of needs backup, because he wouldn't, but they do.
Everybody at home can't wait to play it. Speaking of everyone at home, before you take off, if that's okay, we'd like to answer a few fan questions. Yeah, cool. Here we go.
Yeah, please do.
Callum from the UK asks, what has driven you the most
I don't know about
in the
amazing.
direction of this game?
Wow. Well, I'd say really there have been kind of three consistent ideas at the heart of Gotham Knights. First is having like a whole cast of playable characters that can continue to grow and reinvent themselves.
Yeah, so like those are regular
Second,
costumes.
a real
That means that they're gonna have the
Gotham
gross,
City that keeps challenging you, keeps serving up danger.
the gross
and finally, it's
Red Hood
that
costume.
fantasy
Why
of
is
the
it
superhero team up, and we want to be able to deliver that in co-op play.
Copy that.
Red Hood.
Alistair from Kenya asks, what goes into deciding which characters
I hate
you
that
are going to develop the game
that's not what I'm
around?
looking for. But
Well, we chose characters who resonate
where's
with
the
players
current
on a
one?
few different axes. We
Yeah,
wanted
I like all
heroes
those.
who
I like the one
embodied
from
different
not
aspects
that
of
Red
the Bat
Hood.
family. The detective side, as well as the fighter, the scourge of the underworld, the urban legend. We looked for characters that
There
offer
we go.
players a
DC.
unique starting point and then a long runway
Where
for
is it?
growth. Ultimately, we wanted heroes that
yeah,
could
this
take on the
stupid
forces that threaten
ninja
Gotham
thing
City,
with the eyes
but
on the
each
logo.
bringing
I hate
their
that thing, but
own
it'll probably be
unique
in it.
perspective.
Gotcha. Okay. Now we have Riley from the United States. Homegrown. Riley from the United States asks, could you give anything more on this WB Games Montreal game? Any other little tidbits?
We're actually sort of standing in it. The Belfry will be a very important location in Gotham Knights.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we gotta keep a few secrets. We're gonna have.
Yeah, like the fact
more
that
to talk
Batman's
about
not dead. When you bring in the Court of Owls, you bring in resurrection and rebirth.
It's way bigger than just
I
the
mean,
Court of
that's the story.
Well, is there anything else that you would like us to know?
Well, our game is coming out in 2021, and we can't wait for everyone to play it.
Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Patrick and Floor, for sharing everything
It's
that you have.
100%. 100%. Calling it right now. Batman's not dead. He's been captured by. He might have been killed, but he's definitely gonna be brought back as a Talon for a moment, and then he'll come back to his senses.
Wow.
Guaranteed.
Just.
Oh, are those the costumes? Is that Jim Lee? I think that's a Jim Lee piece. Maybe. Hard to tell. It's kind of far.
Really do come true.
The Dick Grayson's actually the Nightwing's the only one that's throwing me off.
In a flash. So unless you can be in two
Yeah, the
places
Batgirl costume
at
is
once,
weird.
be
It's like
sure to stay with us.
it's kind of a mix of the current and the next, or the old one.
And I want to know how much you're loving DC Fandome. So tweet your replies right now with the hashtag DC Fandome. I'm so excited to be a part of this global virtual experience, the only place to hear the latest announcements from DC. We've got one for you now, so let's check out what's new with Sandman from the creator himself.
Actually, I figure while we're at it, we might as well go live,
Hello,
have a
DC
conversation.
Fandome. I am Yvette Nicole Brown, and I am so excited to be here with you for
I
the
love Yvette
Sandman
Nicole
Universe
Brown.
Into the Dreaming DC Fandome panel. Today, we'll be discussing the comic book series and how it's been expanded with new stories, adapted into new media, and how it continues to enthrall audiences all around the world. Let's meet our awesome panelists. As one of the most popular and critically acclaimed graphic novels of all time, Neil Gaiman's award-winning masterpiece, The Sandman, set the standard for mature lyrical fantasy in the modern comics era. It has been translated in over 15 languages and is available in over 30 territories. I am thrilled to be here with Neil Gaiman. Hi, Neil. Nice to see you again.
Hi, Yvette. Lovely to see you.
Oh, you look so good in your little box. Now, Neil, you started The Sandman as a ground-up reimagining of an older DC property. At what point did you realize how much bigger the story could be? Did you know from page one, or did you find it on the way?
A bit of both. Started in 1987 when I was a 26-year-old writer, and I'd been asked to write a monthly comic for DC Comics. And all I knew was that I needed something that I could go anywhere with. That I could tell any kind of story, because I'd never had to tell a story a month before, and I didn't know if I could. So Sandman was originally imagined as something that would let me tell any kind of story I needed to tell. Probably by the end of the first year, I knew what kind of thing I was doing. And I'd say by the middle of the second year, I knew the shape of the whole story, and I knew what was going to happen. I knew who was going to live and who was going to die, more or less. And then it was a matter of just holding on tight and hoping against all hope that I actually would be able to tell that story before it got cancelled. The original Sandman, the first book, Preludes and Nocturnes, is 8 issues long. And it's 8 issues long because at issue 8 was when they would call you and tell you they were cancelling.
Oh.
And that you would have, you had a year, so you had 4 more issues to wrap it up. So I had, my whole plan was it was going to be an 8-issue storyline and then 4 short stories, and then obviously we'd be cancelled, except we weren't cancelled.
30 years from the original series, what's exciting to you about seeing the story continue, both in its new adaptations and in the Sandman Universe comics?
Not feeling like I made a slice of history. Because, the idea that a 30-year-old comic still has relevance, that a story that's 30 years old, these were your grandparents' comics, and that they can still have relevance is incredibly exciting. So that's been part of the joy of watching over the last few years, the Sandman Universe stuff, where people are just taking ideas and spinning off with them and going and having fun and building them, and the joy of having people like Cy and now like Willow writing some of these amazing artists is a joy. And also I'm getting to do Sandman in different ways. I've been getting to do it working with Dirk Maggs on Audible as a giant audio drama where we've done a very direct adaptation, and we're also getting to do it now with Netflix as a slightly looser but still faithful adaptation. And so all of that is a delight, and it all makes it feel like something happening now and not like something that happened a long time ago.
The Sandman Universe has a new series which started on August 4th, The Dreaming Waking Hours, and it's written by our next guest, G. Willow Wilson. G. Willow, I love your name.
Oh, thank you so much. Hi, Yvette. How are you?
It is so nice to meet you. Now, G. Willow, you first came to the Sandman purely as a fan in your teenage years. What did the series mean to you at that age?
You know, I first read The Sandman in the late 90s as a teenage goth. And for me, what's interesting looking back now is that by the time I read that series, it was already part of the culture. And so I was already wearing the death outfit without knowing what it was. So, you know, to pick up the series and be like, oh, this is where this comes from, was really, really interesting for me. And it had a huge impact, I think, on my sense of how you tell stories in the graphic medium, of the scope of the kinds of stories you can tell, the way that you can put on a twist on legacy characters to make them relevant and fresh again for a new audience. And all of those tools that I was sort of unconsciously picking up reading that series at that age, I think have been tremendously valuable to me, you know, in my own creative life, reimagining different stories and working in, you know, sort of the Sandman universe. So it really feels like coming full circle.
Now, when you learned you were going to be writing The Dreaming Waking Hours, what did you want to bring into the universe that wasn't there yet? What was your in to the story?
When you're dealing with a legacy series that is as beloved as The Sandman is, you have to kind of balance two things. Number one, the history that longtime readers have with the series, the emotional investments that they have in that place and those characters, and also creating a new entry point for people who might not be as familiar with the series. I was sort of going through this roster of characters who've lived in the Sandman universe and in the Dreaming over the years and thinking, who haven't we heard from yet? And at the time I was going through a bout of insomnia and I was thinking to myself, my God, you know how happy I would be to have a nightmare right now, because at least it would mean I was asleep. And it was like a bolt out of the blue. All of a sudden, Ruin, this nightmare who's tired of being a nightmare, wants to be something else, was kind of there and complete. And I was like, oh, there it is. That's the in. That's how we get back into this history from a point of view that's conducive to bringing in new readers, and that maybe gives us a fresh perspective on this really beloved set of characters and place.
In my 20s, I used to have terrible nightmares. And then somewhere around year one of Sandman, they kind of stopped, and they stopped because
this
every
isn't
time
live.
I'd have a nightmare, I would wake
Sons
up
of bitches,
so
this
happy.
isn't live. 'Cause that was a cut.
Dribble it down. I grab a
That was
notebook
a
by my
hard
bed,
cut.
Put the details of whatever this awful nightmare was, and I would just be so happy. And they just stopped, and I figured that whoever sent the nightmares
100%
just got
this is not live.
tired of sending getting the wrong reactions from you.
That's amazing.
I cannot wait to read Waking Hours. Okay, so let me just calm myself down, silence my inner fangirl. We mentioned how the Sandman was transcending the panels of the comic book page. In July, fans got to experience the Sandman Audible series. Joining us now is the director of that series, Dirk Maggs. Welcome, Dirk.
Thank you, Yvette. Lovely to be here.
Oh my gosh, and thank you for bringing your hair because it's amazing. Neil and Dirk, how did you guys first meet?
It was a hair retrospective.
I knew we'd go there.
We failed to meet, although we first encountered each other in about 1992 when Dirk was doing, he was adapting The Death of Superman for British radio as an audio drama.
Yeah.
And it became a huge phenomenon in the UK. And Phyllis Hume, who was at DC Comics back then, decided that we should become acquainted, and she gave Dirk Sandman graphic novels, which was, Sandman was still being written, and Dirk read it and went, "This is a drama." And what happened then, Dirk?
And then the BBC said, I think we've done enough comic book stuff with you now, Dirkie. Off you go and do some terrible comedy instead. And so that was it. We didn't do it for the BBC. And I thought that was it, game over. So it was very sad because I'd never read anything like it. And actually, I thought of all the things we were doing, and I'm very proud of our Superman and Batman. But I thought, wow, this guy is writing some interesting stuff here. Wouldn't it be great to put it in a studio? Little knowing it would take 28 years to actually get
I might have to listen
Well,
to that.
it was worth the wait.
Yeah.
Dirk, what was the process of taking the comic book scripts and turning them into an audio experience?
Really, the process with Neil was very easy because Neil is still alive, which is an enormous amount of help. It actually means I can talk to the author without using a Ouija board. And not only that, but the author in this case is a supremely kind, indulgent, patient man who will put up with the questions of someone who normally is just a drummer and give him intelligent replies. So it was wonderful to have Neil accessible, and the real joy was to actually get Neil's original scripts, which he wrote at the time for the artists. And one of the things about the scripts is they're kind of like the blueprint. They're kind of like the scaffolding behind the facade, which is the story. And you get into Neil's mind at the time when he's writing him, 27-year-old Neil, and what he wants to see. And what, I don't know if Neil, you knew this, but there's real poetry in your descriptions that no one but a single artist would read. Well, I know you know that now because you've been reading these descriptions as part of the narration. But really, they were a piece of literary art in their own right, the scripts. So I had those to base things on. We'd come to the decision that we were going to stick pretty closely to the original work, because why wouldn't you? Effectively, there is nothing needs really changing. Occasionally, here and there, one might just, touch slightly on the steering wheel, but there is nothing much you need to do. And they just rock. They totally rock. So Neil as narrator now is being Neil the writer. We're in his head. And then off the page, I'm going to extend this metaphor to snapping point, come the characters and we get this wonderful sort of sense of being inside Neil's head. The nicer part, the classy part.
The classy part. Okay, well, besides the star actors, you had to cast something like 150 other parts. Kudos to you. What was that process like, Dirk?
Well, I've got to say, our casting team, Marielle and Nicola, who were doing a lot of the casting, did a fantastic job. There are way many more parts than we could comfortably deal with in a given situation with a studio that probably held 6 people and was really only built for 1. If you know the Marx Brothers works, you'll know there's a thing called the stateroom scene where they're trying to cram into a cupboard on a boat. Well, that's kind of how it was in this situation. I had to think of a way through this, and I thought what we need is all the very best audio voice actors in London. And London is a really good place to get voice actors because, of course, BBC still runs spoken word and drama and so on and so forth. So actors as busy as Michael and James, who was in a play at the time, you're not expecting to see them. You're getting people who normally would get a marquee, who are coming in as part of the ensemble.
Riz
and everybody
MC
kind of
is
checked
in
their
it.
egos at the door. And we ended up with a really lovely situation. There were certain episodes, like, for example, A Midsummer Night's Dream, where, the temperature in the studio kind of climbed into the late 90s. But the upside was that the cast, we were pretty much doing the story from soup to nuts. So if you're in the room with them, you're watching one of Neil's greatest stories just happen in front of your eyes with a bit of extra Shakespeare here and there. So it was a wonderful experience.
Speaking of the amazing cast, we are joined by the devilish Michael Sheen. Welcome to the panel, Michael.
Hello, Beth. How you doing?
I'm good. So happy to have you with us. So, Michael, now you are on the hot seat. How did you put your spin on Lucifer?
I mean, I remember when I first read Sandman. I'd left Wales to come down to London to go to drama school. And one of my fellow classmates at RADA, within the first few weeks, said to me, do you read comic books? And I said, no, I don't. And I thought, like superheroes? I'm not really into all that. And sorry, DC. And he said, here we are. And he gave me some Alan Moore. He gave me V for Vendetta and Watchmen and Swamp Thing and Constantine and Sandman. And I remember reading the first few Sandmans, and it just sort of, it did literally change my life. It sort of both reinforced what I was already interested in, but opened doors to whole universes for the rest of my life. It created my taste, really, I suppose. It led me to finding out about Joseph Campbell and comparative mythology and Carl Jung and all kinds of stuff. It just blew my mind. And certain things really stayed with me. And one of those things was the character of Lucifer, when you first meet him early on in the story, and that kind of young Bowie look. That image.
I could just see,
really
like, I'm imagining
I came to do Lucifer,
the guy
that
from the
was
show
there
doing
at the back of my mind. And I love the idea of someone who looks very angelic. He is an angel. He's the fallen angel. And that young Bowie with the curly blonde hair is very angelic and sort of chirpy. Hello, and it takes you by surprise. You're expecting Lucifer to be Lucifer. And of course you don't have to. It's like, hello, Dream, how are you? And I love that idea of sort of surprising the audience and pulling the rug out from under their feet, which Neil is so brilliant at. And of course, the first thing I ever saw to do with the Sandman was the cover of Preludes and Nocturnes, the Dave McKean art. And even from that, I knew I was entering into a whole other world. And then, of course, getting to know Dave many years later was a bit of a dream come true.
He is such a singular talent and such a singular vision. It was weird with Sandman. I think we had this huge fight on our hands right in the very beginning when we told DC that the title character Morpheus would not be on every cover. I remember them coming back going, but how will people know this is Sandman? And we said, well, because the word Sandman will be on every cover. And having lost that battle, they never fought again. They were like, okay, well, obviously we don't know what this thing is, and they're doing things that break all the rules because you have to have the character on the cover, and they aren't. So
you don't, though.
They're just doing their thing. And it really was Dave having that fight. And also around Sandman 9, Dave refusing to be fired. Karen Berger fired him. He was in New York, and she said, we don't have time for you to do any more Sandman covers. And he said to me, I've been fired. And I said, what are you going to do? He said, well, I'm going to spend the next 2 days painting the next 8 Sandman covers, and then I'm going to send them over to her, and I'll see what she says. And that's what he did. He just made the rest of the Doll's House covers.
Amazing.
He did all the covers and sent them over.
That's fantastic.
And what was she going to do? They were brilliant.
Of course, I'd spent a fair amount of time with Neil fairly recently when we did Good Omens together. So I got used to Neil being on the other side of the camera and close to me, which I liked. But he's sort of creeping ever closer, like a game of Grandma's Clock. Is that what it's called? Where, every time I look around, he's not behind the camera now. Now he's actually standing next to me in the recording studio, narrating the damn thing. If he gets any closer, we'll have to have an operation to be separate.
I love the fact that I get to work with Michael. Michael and I have been friends since 2010. And we've been working together since 2017, and I get to just admire him as an actor more and more. And the very, very peculiar feeling of having my friend Michael standing next to me in the studio and opening his mouth, and this voice that basically belongs to David Bowie playing Lucifer coming out of his mouth. And I'm just sort of looking and going, how does he do that? How can that work? And I forget that my friend Michael is also one of the greatest actors of our age.
I keep forgetting Chris
an
Bacalo
absolute
was on
delight.
that.
We were incredibly lucky at the kind of cast who came out for Dirk and also who came out for Sandman, because we're lucky in that there are Sandman fans everywhere. And we get to punch above our weight. You know, we get to get Willow coming in and writing The Dreaming because she was a Sandman fan and she wants to write Sandman. We get Michael Sheen, we get Kat Dennings, we get these amazing people coming in and fighting to do it because they love Sandman. And we are so lucky in that.
Like we said earlier, the Sandman is in dozens of languages and has been in print continuously for over 30 years. Why do you think the Sandman not only endures, but transcends media?
For me, the answer is that I really didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't know what I was meant to be doing, and I didn't know how to do it. And I did it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And that just doing it also meant that everything I was seeing, everybody I met, every thought going through my head made it onto the page. And every way that I could tell stories, I was telling stories, I was trying new things. And I think that it hasn't aged and it hasn't dated in probably the way that it should. You can absolutely see places where it's completely of its time, and you can see places where my heart was in the right place, but I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I think that's fine and that's forgivable, because overall, I think I, along with dozens of astonishing artists and along with people who are unsung, like Todd Klein, our amazing letterer who did miracles that then nobody notices are there, you know, creating lettering font styles for characters like Delirium or Dream or Desire. I thought I was making something completely disposable. If I'd known I was making something that would last, I probably would have had a lot more attention, and it probably wouldn't have worked.
How about the rest of you? Why does it transcend for all of you, you think?
Like I said, it sort of changed my world, really. It gave me an introduction to things that have had a huge impact on my life and who I am today. And it led me, you know, it is a story about stories. And as such, you know, as Neil said, he wanted to come up with something that allowed him to tell whatever story he wanted. And because of that, it roams across time and space and through mythology and history and Shakespeare, you know, it was such an explosion of the imagination and creativity. And yet at the same time was grounded in a real kind of edgy, earthy realism as well. So it had something for everyone, but instead of being a kind of jack of all trades, it seemed so specific. And it was just like, I mean, it's like when I as an actor working on Shakespeare.
What's funny is I have never actually read Sandman. I've read Sandman.
Because of what
was it
Shakespeare
called?
does in his plays. And reading the Sandman was a similar experience.
Prelude book.
I could feel my consciousness.
It was oddly the most recent one that was put out prior to this whole new Sandman Universe thing.
Because it is about sort of primal,
Sandman,
deep things like the dreaming, like reality,
Sandman.
and concepts
Sandman.
like fairy.
What was the name of it?
Of course, it's timeless.
Sandman.
I mean, it's about the endless, and the story itself is endless, and so it will go on forever.
Speaking from the point of view of adapting it to another medium, what's great about it is that it's doing everything that Michael has just described. It's this enormously, the conceit of it, and I'm not using conceit pejoratively there, but the scale of the imagination, all of
Sandman
Neil's
Overture, which is
years
a
in
prelude
series,
miniseries that he did.
All that reading is
ends,
just pouring out on the page. It's sort of
from what I understand, on the
like
beginning
a dump tank of ideas. And to have started this journey in audio, particularly where we're sticking very close to
from what I understand, it ends
originals, is great, because I know, well, we all know where it's going to go, but the journey
issue
of discovery
of the Sandman.
is getting
so for me, I'm reading it
when
chronologically.
Michael comes in and starts
I'm
playing
be
Lucifer,
picking that up
soon. Wow,
That's
I
like
can't
the next series
wait
I'm
to
looking
hear
at
where this is going to
pick
go.
up.
And of course, we have all that to look forward to, and the rest of the cast as well. So
I feel like
hats off to Neil. You know,
but see, like they've spent a lot of time on this. They spent a lot of time on this radio drama thing. The next part is going to be the fact that he mentioned a Netflix show
about Sandman, especially the first time that I read it through as a teenager, was that unexpected people were at the center of the story. I
Is
think,
it
you know, we're
animated
kind
thing?
of
I forget.
taught to look to the most obvious figures to be heroes,
Yeah,
the
there's nothing
politicians,
there.
the famous people, all of this. Whereas in Sandman, the guy sitting next to you on the bus could be Lucifer or the King of Dreams.
Yep.
And as such, you get stories about characters who I
JGL's
think
on
were
it.
kind of pushed to the margins, especially at the time, in other types of stories, right? And now they're at the center. And that makes you look twice at the world around you. It makes you sort of question, you know, who is telling the story, and what point of views are we missing, and who is unmourned. I mean, that also really struck me, is that, you know, like this came out in the middle of the AIDS epidemic when, you know, a lot of people were trying to push, you know, these deaths and this terrible thing that was happening under the rug. And Sandman said, no, pay attention. This is important. These people are important. And that was very striking to me. And I think that's part of the reason that it still feels so relevant, because it kind of reminds you there are still stories we haven't heard. You know, there's still things we're afraid to talk about. And it's the people around you who could be the true spinners of tales. And that really has stuck with me through the years.
Well, that answer was amazing.
I've thought about this a lot.
Oh gosh, it was so good, Jewella. I want to thank all of you for this wonderful time. I had the best time talking to all of you. But before we go, we can't forget about the dedicated fans. We asked and they responded, and we get it. You want to know about the Netflix show. So Neil, can you tell us anything? We've been asked about when it will be released. We've been asked about the cast details. What can you tell us, Neil?
Well, I can tell you that due to COVID, everything, as with every other piece of television being made around the world right now, somebody pushed a giant pause button. And we've taken advantage of our pause button just to try and get the scripts as close to perfect as we possibly could, which has been really fun. And that right now, as the universal pause button is starting to come off, we're starting to cast again. I'm getting these inspiring and wonderful emails with production designs, with places that I've only ever seen in the comics before.
So they're starting pre-production.
Now being rendered in 3D, and I'm being asked to comment on it. That's amazing. There's not a lot I can say. Something that I will say is part of the joy of doing the audio adaptation was going, this is going to be the nearest thing we can do to an audiobook of those first 3 graphic novels, and hopefully all of the graphic novels. And we're going to start it in 1988. And it's going to end in about 1991 or 1992. Sandman is a very compressed story, even though it takes place all through time and space. That's where that story takes place. What we're doing with Netflix is saying, okay, it's still going to start in 1916, but the thing that happens in Sandman 1, the point that the story starts, is not 1988, it's now. And how does that change the story? What does that give us? What does that make us have to look at that we wouldn't have had to look at if we were setting it as a period piece? What is that going to do to the gender of characters? What is that going to do to the nature of characters? What's that going to do to the story? And that has been an absolute delight, because it means we are always being true to the story and being true to the characters, but it gives us tremendous freedom to go, okay, if we were doing it now, what would Sandman be? And that, again, is very liberating.
Well, as a fan myself, I cannot wait to see it. And I just wanted to share that I was a tiny part of the Sandman universe. Check this out. It's a drawing by artist Domo Stanton of me flying through the city.
Lovely.
Mm-hmm. I look good. Well, thank you all so much. It's been
I'll
wonderful
reload this
chatting.
so we can see the Twitter feed here.
Of course, Neil Gaiman, thanks for joining us, and enjoy the rest of DC Fandome.
Dreams, nightmares, demigods, and fallen angels. I am officially in and can't wait to dig into Sandman. Right now, let's get back to hearing from our fans and see what questions they or maybe even you have.
Yeah. Let's see what the internet's asking. Batwoman. Yeah, that's a really good question. How will the relationship between Batwoman
Already,
and
Batwoman
Supergirl
kind of
change?
stands out because she doesn't technically have like a superpower. Everything that she uses to fight
she's the
bad
new
guys is
Batwoman.
more of her intelligence and Luke and her physical strength. So I do look forward to seeing that, or for playing in that perspective, like from a Ryan perspective, from like this street kid's perspective, from a person that saw these superheroes growing up, because that was also really important for Ryan, you know, to see Batwoman be an out lesbian and to have a, you know, a superhero role model to look up to. And then now all of a sudden I'm filling those shoes. So to not only fill those shoes, but to play amongst the ones that have already been doing it, I think that that's going to be a lot for her. I'm sure it's going to be a culture shock for her.
She's
but I
got
also think
a
that it's
very
really cool because
similar
it's really
physique,
like when that world meets the superhero world in,
to the
in
previous
all of its
actress,
dynamics.
whose name I forget for some reason. So I'm interested to see. That's going to be interesting.
Hola mi gente, I'm Gabby Cam, your host from Mexico City. For nearly 60 years, DC has played with the intriguing concept of the multiverse. It allows multiple
where are you going
dimensions
with
all
this?
to exist at the
I saw
same
this
time, which
title on the
means
schedule.
multiple versions of me could actually exist right now. And not only that, on these other
And some
worlds,
of them
I could
might not be
be
annoying.
a different gender, ethnicity, a villain, or even an alien. I wish I knew what kind of alien I would be. Maybe in this panel, I will find out.
Let's see what this is about. Because I'm curious. I want to know if this is about comics, because they're really hedging their bets in the comics on alternate universes right now with Deceased and with
The multiverse has been at the
Death
heart
Knight
of
Metal.
DC almost from the very start. But the moment most fans
That
think of
is-
is this one. In the Silver Age of comics, when the Flash met the Flash in 1961.
Oh, yeah,
In
she was-
Flash of
she was
Two Worlds,
the-
DC created a
I
story
don't
where
know
the
her
Flash
name, but she
could be
was
Barry
the-
Allen and Jay Garrick at the
one of
very
the hosts
same
of
time.
DC All Access.
And created the architecture that would allow DC to be expansive, inclusive in their storytelling and in their universe, and is the world that fans now know. And also laid the groundwork for the
That's
ambitious
not what-
crossover event, Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Hold on.
Crisis
Hold on.
on
Turn that down because she said allowed them to be inclusive. That's not why they created it, though. Had nothing to do with being inclusive.
But this is not the
It
first
now
time DC
gives
has
them a
explored
way
the
to be
multiverse,
inclusive
and
since
trust me,
DC
it will
is
not be the last
pretty
time
fucking
fans will see
white.
it, as DC
But
is fully embracing this exciting creative
curious.
concept and how it can open up endless opportunities for storytelling for our comic books, TV shows, film, and games creators. Here in the DC Fandome, I am so excited to have our own crossover moment and talk about what the multiverse really is for DC, how it informs every story DC tells, and how fans can expect to see it on the page or on the screen moving forward. I'm Tiffany Smith, and I'm so excited to welcome our panelists here today. First up, we have got a legendary comic book artist in his own right. He is also the chief creative officer and publisher for DC, and he sits at the heart of everything DC does and is a master
He's
of
the
the
only
multiverse.
fucking
Jim
chief
Lee.
anything right now.
Thank you.
They fired the
Next up,
editor.
he oversees DC's films, which run the gamut from The Joker to Aquaman, and has huge plans for where DC movies are about to go next. Walter Hamada, how you doing, sir?
Better.
I'm good. Great to be here.
Fucking better.
And finally, one of the key architects of DC's Arrowverse and the amazing Crisis crossover event, he is executive producer of nearly a dozen fan-favorite DC shows
Berman?
like Batwoman,
Ber-
The Flash,
Ber-
Supergirl,
Berman?
Doom Patrol, Titans, and the upcoming Superman and Lois, and many, many more. It's Greg Berlanti.
Berlanti.
How are you?
Jesus, I knew it was
Very
Greg.
good, very good. Great to be here.
Let's just kind of go to the top of it, and I'm going to go to you, Jim. What exactly is the DC multiverse for people who may not know?
Yeah. I think when people think about superheroes, they know the names, the costumes, the powers, the origins, and it kind of tends to be this sort of monolithic kind of thing. But one of the things that really is distinct and unique to DC is that it's the first large work of fiction that has leaned upon this idea that we are not alone. We have this reality, this earth, but that there are alternate realities that sit side by side with us, and they're infinite number. And on each of these different earths, we exist, but maybe in slightly different variations, right? We might be a different gender on another planet, or we might be furry creatures. And this extends to all the superheroes. So you start seeing this.
Was that a sneaky drop there, Jim? Because he said
characters
infinite
that
number.
create.
Last
And
I
so it
checked, there were
allows us
52.
to have the freedom and to create different versions, and then lean upon that canon as we, change up the mythology and the pantheon of characters to better reflect the true diversity and inclusivity that our audiences want and that our audiences live in.
You kind of touched on it already, Jim, but let's go to you, Greg. How do you feel like the multiverse really informs the stories that you tell through DC TV?
I would say that when we started out just with Arrow, 8-9 years ago now, it wasn't our intention to replicate what everyone had done so brilliantly in comics, and it wasn't until the Flash came along, and we tried in the pilot of the Flash to put the two of them on screen together, that I remember watching that first scene of the two of them together and thinking like, oh wow, this makes me feel like the DC books made me feel, like 1 + 1 = 3. The other thing it allows for is the vastness. You really feel the vastness of each of these different worlds, and I think it adds to the importance of these heroes and the myth of them, and that's been really exciting. And again, the element of surprise. If the universe that everyone's constructing, the different showrunners and creators and directors, and obviously with Walter and Jim helping shepherd all of it, if it can go to all those different places and still be tethered together, I think just as an audience member, I want to show up and not know like who might I see here, and I think that's incredibly exciting.
Well, and I think it's something too where, we talk about comic book writers getting to play with the characters in different ways. Same thing on the TV shows where it's when you bring a character from one show into another show, those writers now get to play with that character or a different version of them, which I think the fans, myself included, have loved seeing on TV.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun for the actors. They love it when they play a villain version of themselves from another planet. Everybody loves to play a villain.
You face some of the greatest evils known to man, and you've defeated them. If you think so highly of yourselves that you can defeat any threat that comes your way,
How do you feel about us?
And
Yeah,
like
but then
you
they-
said, it
I
wasn't,
think
you
they
weren't
put
really
their
thinking at the
masks back
outset
on.
about getting to this place of Crisis on Infinite Earths and seeing all of that. Can you talk to us a little bit about just leading up to that and everything that happened before, and maybe like when you got to the point where you're like, yeah, this is something we really want to talk about?
Well, I mean, really, it was so much of our motto behind the scenes was to try and create episodes and seasons and shows that we would want to watch. And so it just inevitably kind of kept going in that direction. One of my fellow EPs, Mark Guggenheim, is my own personal encyclopedia for a lot of knowledge of these things, and was really, the centerpiece of production-wise pulling the scope of those things together. And I would be remiss if I didn't just say just how much his own passion for all that has been, very inspiring. But we sort of kept, building block by block, and then truly in the last couple of years, and again in working with
I just want
Walter
to talk about
Jim,
this tweet.
it's really
riding
just,
the bike in the game.
A whole
The
new
first thing that
level.
we
We
recorded.
never thought we'd even be allowed to
looks
do
so satisfying.
Crisis,
I mean,
it was a pipe dream.
it looks like riding a
We
bike,
just
so
kind
I
of
don't
kept
really
finding
know
ways
what
to
looks
get
so
all of the
satisfying
characters
about
together.
it.
And
But
then,
sure, whatever
the
gets you
year
excited.
Before we did Crisis, we said, well, what if we just say coming
I
next year?
missed the Wonder Woman
Crisis,
thing.
and-
I knew I was off on the time.
and everyone was like, okay,
We'll
yeah,
have
you
to-
can say that. Well,
we'll
I
have
was
to
like, well,
watch
I
the
guess they've
trailer.
approved it. Then now we get to go. And that it was really epic. I mean, there were just so many, obviously, so many Easter eggs and so many different little characters. But then, the guys calling about saying that if we could we possibly fit in Ezra? Is that a possibility? That's really for the first time historically combining a TV character and a film character.
That moment,
in that
the
way,
Ezra Miller Flash
I
moment,
think
I
feels like
shit
the beginning of a
myself.
whole new
Absolutely
generation
shit
of
myself.
how we can begin to do these things, and that's just as a storyteller, that's really, really exciting.
Well, I feel like a kid in a candy store being like, "We got Crisis on Infinite Earths. What's next?" But can you talk a little bit about what's going to happen in the world post Crisis on Infinite Earths?
Well, we are yes, because because certain worlds have been combined. We're mindful of that now. In terms of how that will affect certain shows, and in terms of what our crossover event will be next year. I think truly because of COVID right now and the pandemic, our aspirations aren't quite as large. We'd just like to start shooting again. That would be, nuts. Happy to invite any feature characters that the guys want to have on. I think that was truly a thrill.
How did that crossover event happen with Ezra, and talk about the conversation of when you guys were like, could this work? Can we get him here?
We'd been developing on the feature side our Flash script for a while, which was leaning into the idea of the multiverse and playing in that sandbox. And again, I'm focused very much on the movies and what we're doing. And Jim was just like, would you, since we're leaning into the multiverse, do you think Ezra would ever do this crossover? I picked up the phone, called him, and before I could even finish the pitch, he was like, I'm in. Tell me when, where. Like, he's just such a fan, I think, of the character and I think of the universe, and he understands the importance of Flash and the character of his role sort of in that idea of the multiverse, that he immediately jumped on it. And then at that point, it was just Jim ran with it.
We were in a meeting, I think it was Walter, me, Peter Roth was there. We kind of threw out this idea, and Peter was like, let me talk to Greg about this. And this was last minute too, right?
But we had shot the crossover. So
yeah, exactly. This is like right before the holidays.
We were editing. And so the first call was like, well, wait a second. Can Flash also bring us back in time to do this? Because,
exactly. Yeah, so we're on the holidays. I knew that we're down the wire, but I knew how meaningful this would be to the fans, just because Flash's meeting created the multiverse. That the fact that this had never been done before, and that this was new footage. A lot of the stuff, like with Green Lantern, was kind of old footage. This is new stuff, and we had to track down the costume for Ezra. Luckily, he still fit into it. And Peter, spoke with Greg, and Greg graciously allowed us to do this at the last minute, very last minute. And Mark wrote dialogue at the last second, sent it over. It had to be kind of vague enough to not create too many expectations, but kind of solidify the fact that this is happening, that these Flashes are both the Flash in different universes. And the cool thing is, Ezra's Flash was never named the Flash in the movies. He got his name from meeting Grant, who knew he was the Flash. And that's like so cool to have that introduction into the canon, right? And so that was it. And it came together at the last minute, and it worked out great. Those guys kind of improvised and the lines, and
they definitely improvised.
There's a lot of improvisation.
It was touching and funny, and it was just a great moment. And then when it went live, man, people's heads exploded. And then I think,
well, there were a lot of people who worked on the show and had shot the episode and didn't know that it was in there. So they were watching. There were people that had been in the episode that were watching it live that night that wrote me and said, "I didn't know about this. Did you keep this a secret from me?" And I was like, "No, I wasn't. We just did it last week."
Yeah.
Is this cosplay? Oh, do you want a selfie, bro?
No,
I'm sorry.
We're not. No, I'm also the Flash.
You're also the what?
The Flash.
The Flash? The Flash?
It's complicated.
I like your outfit. It seems comfy.
Yours is pretty cool.
Smooth.
It seems safe and
breathable. Found Barry Allen. No! What does that mean? How can this...
This should be impossible now.
It should be impossible now?
You don't know about the...
Oh my God, don't do this to me. I don't know about the what.
Well, and kind of talk about that, Greg, because I know just the crossover events are such a big to-do anyway, getting all of the actors from all of the shows and the sets and everything working together at the same pace and timing, and then now throwing in the film piece as well. I feel like all of you guys, just from talking to you and, knowing you a little bit, that you're a huge fan. So you're like, we'll do anything to make it work. But what was that moment like for you?
Well, I was, honestly, I really do experience these shows just as a fan first. And so when I heard it, I just thought I would want to see that. I would want to see that, let alone be a part of it. you know, and whenever anybody in this business is doing stuff from that place of like, you know, how can we make this thing the best it can be, and how can we deliver something to everybody and that, you know, understands and loves these characters as much as we do, you know, then the impossible stuff that seems impossible ends up becoming possible.
I think up to this point, we were the company was just organized in a way where TV was TV and film was film, and oftentimes DC and Jim was sort of the arbiter of like, hey, they want to use this character, using this character, and it became this like really weird situation where the fans they love the characters, they just want to see the characters, and this sort of opens the door for us to do more crossovers, to really lean into this idea and just acknowledge the fact that there can be a Flash on TV and one in the movies, and you don't have to pick one or the other. You can love both, and they do both exist in this great multiverse. And I do think that moving forward, there's more opportunities for us to do things like this. And really, at the end of the day, it's about the fans, and I think the fans want to see it, and it gives us a way to sort of explore maybe some different stories and different ideas, and use the medium in a different way than it's been used thus far.
We can just dive in a little bit more into the DC films. Walter, for you, what does the multiverse really mean?
What the multiverse allows you to do is sort of lean into this idea of you can tell just great stories, and you don't have to really be as focused on it has to fit within a singular continuity. On one Earth, we have our Gal and Jason and Ezra version of the Justice League, and we can continue telling those stories. While on a separate Earth, we don't have to worry about the continuity. We can have a more grounded, real Year 2 Batman and build out that world, and not really worry about continuity, story elements, and et cetera. And so it's really kind of the best of both worlds, and allows us to take advantage of everything that's great about what we've done, and really allow us to sort of expand moving forward. And we're trying to keep it as simple as that. Like there is that one Earth, the greater Earth of sort of this existing Justice League, and then the beginnings of another Earth that is sort of happening, that's early stages of Year 2 Batman. And then obviously there are outliers like Joker, which it doesn't exist in either Earth, but that's okay. It's all part of the multiverse. Matt Reeves can continue to build out his Gotham, and he's got great plans to how to build it out, and build it out in a way that's sort of innovative. And you know, they announced recently that there's an idea of taking that Gotham and exploring it at HBO Max as a show. Like those are things that you can do because we don't have to worry about how that would impact Aquaman 2 or how that could impact the Flash, you know. And so I think it just opens doors for us in ways that you couldn't have if you had to have a singular universe.
So let's get into some of the questions that we've got from fans. The first one is for you, Jim. It's from Van in the US. Now that Doomsday Clock has concluded, will we see any more of Alan Moore's comic characters cross over with the DC multiverse?
Probably less on the crossover side. You don't want to, dip into the well too often and kind of make it too regular a thing. It becomes too commonplace. You want to save it for really big epic storylines where you've got great creators like Jeff Johns, who's able to come in and really deliver, a story worthy of that kind of concept. But we are, there's a spinoff. There's a Rorschach series that Tom King is writing. It's not like necessarily a crossover per se, but we are exploring more of the Watchmen universe. It's obviously got kind of second life with the HBO TV series, and so it's been kind of fun exploring that. But yeah, that's all I can share at this point.
The next one is for Greg from Swarup Kumar Singh in India. The Crisis on Infinite Earths finale showed that the multiverse is gone and there exists only one universe and one Earth, Earth Prime. But since other shows like Titans, Doom Patrol, and the DC still goes on, is the multiverse actually gone or is it recreated?
It's not gone. That was to really help us, sort of like the original reason for Crisis, when they were like, oh, we have too many worlds. Let's start combining things for the purpose of the books. I think for the purposes of the CW, those worlds are now one. But off network is like being off planet in a different part of the multiverse, but it's still alive and flourishing.
The multiverse. Every existence multiplied by possibility. And spread out before space and time in infinite measure. Civilizations rose and fell. And rose again across reality's grasping expanse. Life a precious gift, persevering in the face of every obstacle. Until, finally, the Age of Heroes was born.
Okay, well, the next question is for you from Sumik Day in India. Will we get more multiverse movies or even Elseworlds movies like Superman, Red Sun?
I think it's the possibility is there. It's not, it really comes down to, like I said, our focus is great stories. And so if we come across the right filmmaker with an interesting story that doesn't work within our existing timeline, and it would work as an Elseworld, we would definitely explore it. I can say we're not currently developing Red Sun, so that isn't one of them, but it really comes down to when the right filmmaker or the right idea comes together. That's the beauty of the multiverse, is we can explore it. We can go down the road and take a shot at it. But what we don't want to do is be in a place, like Jim was saying, like it should be special. I don't think you want an Elseworld movie every year, like clockwork. Like it'd be much better for it to be a special thing. And we also want them to be great. We want them to be special. We want to make sure that it doesn't just sort of feel like we're just cranking out a volume of different versions of these characters. There has to be a reason for it. And I think it has to be a reason that we're excited about, that we think the fans will be excited about. So yes, the answer is yes, there will be opportunities. That one is not one that we're currently exploring.
We've got one more question for all of you guys. This is from Ryan Keller in the US. With the existence of the DC multiverse, how do you approach managing a wide variety of characters, stories, and universes for DC? And how would you work to help keep the audience connected with such a large variety of characters and stories? I imagine that you guys all have like a board somewhere in your house. It's like you open the doors and it's like, here's the characters in the whole world connected with yarn. I don't think that any of you have that. If you do, please show us right now.
It's like one of those True Detective scenes or something where it's just like newspaper yarn.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
I was muted.
I think that is
I think I yawned or
so
whatever.
many characters,
what I was saying is irrelevant. While they were not saying, while he was saying that there was not any plans for Superman Red Sun, he was basically saying, if someone wants to pitch me, whatever. And I also said that I wouldn't care if there was an Elseworlds movie every month if it was great. That's the problem that we've had with DC movies so far, is that they haven't focused on the movie being great. They've tried to make this like universe and this stuff, and they've tried to like catch up to Marvel and try to make money as opposed to making great movies. And that's kind of been their downfall. But I want to say, and I want to reiterate the fact that I just tweeted this, and I kind of hope it shows up. In 5 minutes, Walter said more about the DCEU than the company has in 5 years. And that's the big problem we've talked about on this podcast before, that DC just does not communicate sufficiently, and that is like why we're mad at them about all the movie stuff. There's rumors left and right. I mean, just this week, there was additional rumors. I'm going to mute this entirely. Just this week, there were additional rumors of now Ben Affleck's Batman also being in Flash, on top of Michael Keaton's Batman being in Flash. And now there is even a rumor of a Batman, a Ben Affleck Batman TV series on HBO Max. But DC's just shut the fuck up about it. Like, DC is not communicating about it. That's why I said Walter in 5 minutes gave us more than the company's given us in 5 years.
Certainly any kind of character with that kind of size and scope and that much meaning in the world like this. But, so we want to justify our use of any character. But at the same time, ultimately, I think it's in the, as we bring all of these characters into live action and to life, it's just so much more enriching and rewarding for everyone, to feel like, okay, the best idea wins, and the best version of the story is going to be what we're all really trying to serve.
I think in the past there's been like, well, features might do something with that, so stay away from it. It could be years before that character ever showed up on the screen, if it even showed up on the screen, and it was clear to us, like, it doesn't make sense to hold that back from the fans. let's explore that. And by the way, if they fall in love with the character on TV and we do something in the movies 3 years down the road, all the better. Like, it's just a greater awareness for the characters. And so for us, our board
you
is
say
much
that,
smaller
but that's not true because you'll never make a Batman.
We have, you know, within a movie, it's 120 pages, and there's
but it's a web series. It's different.
TV, there's a bunch of other characters that pop up.
There's always been
it's a
an
little bit more
unspoken thing about
straightforward
Batman
for us. I think
TV stuff.
really Jim is the great sort of, he's the center of everything. So he has to know everything that we're doing in features, everything that's happening in TV, and everything funnels to him. And I think that's great that we have this guy who sort of knows the world better than anybody, who can sort of look at it and kind of go and come up and say, wouldn't it be great if Ezra showed up when met Grant? And like, you don't get that without Jim sort of being sort of at the center of all this. And so it's I think it's just
Jim's
a
like,
great
yeah,
collaborative
bitch,
team, and
I'm in charge.
And it's really just the beginning of what we're doing here. I think with just the stuff that we're working on now, and the idea of the multiverse, and really HBO Max being this other venue for us to really start to
there he is. He said it.
I think if there was that sense that TV was TV and film was film, Max sort of becomes this place where we you know, it'll be our clubhouse. Well, everything will gather into that space.
Yeah,
we'll be able to explore different opportunities and cross back over. And
look at that! Oh my God!
The potential of all the things that we can do with DC in the multiverse.
Awesome. Well, I want to say a huge thank you to the three of you guys for taking the time to chat.
And once again, in less than 3 minutes, tells us a shit ton more than DC ever would have by themselves. Come on, man. This is what we want. We want to know that you're going to use this opportunity. All right, yeah, HBO Max. It's a stupid name. It's a stupid move. Why not just make a fucking... whatever. Warner Media should have been the name of the platform. Regardless, HBO Max, he just basically confirmed, oh, hey, this gives us an opportunity to cross shit over. So that means we might see Grant Gustin and Ezra Miller on an HBO Max TV show. Web series, whatever you want to call it.
Now, if you're a big DC fan like me, then I'm willing to bet that you cannot wait for the Flash feature film to electrify the big screen. The good news is that you don't have to wait that long, because we are going right now with the filmmakers and the Flash himself, Ezra Miller.
Yep, talk to me. This will be our last segment here for this podcast. I might record more for next week, though.
Hello, fans around the world. It's me, Ezra Miller.
Can you just move out your hair on the left side a little bit?
You don't like this? I'm Andy Muschietti, director of the Flash movie.
I'm Christina Hodson, the screenwriter of The Flash. I haven't spoken to humans in a while, so I'm going to be rusty.
I'm Barbara Muschietti, the producer of the Flash movie.
I play Barry Allen, aka The Flash, in the upcoming Flash movie. And I love you, and I'm excited to be here digitally with you.
He's such a nerd. This is definitely pre-recorded.
If you go to the bottom of Andy Muschietti's Wikipedia or IMDb page, you'll see that he actually has a PA credit on the 1996 Madonna movie Evita. Must ask you more about that, Andy.
Telling the story of one of the greatest superheroes of the DC world is a challenge. The most important thing is that it gets to your heart. Growing up with Batman and Superman and Flash, it was an opportunity to reconnect with childhood experiences reading DC Comics.
Flash fact, DC Comics actually stands for Detective Comics.
Comics.
The tone for the film, I think, is very much Andy's signature.
He can jump from funny to scary to emotional really fast.
And it's also a time travel story, which I find very exciting.
Andy managed to put
Glad
these
that's finally
tiny little
confirmed.
DC Easter eggs into the It movie.
I like your glasses, Mr. Keene. You look just like Clark Kent.
I don't know about that.
One, he was vying for the job way earlier than any of us knew. Or two, while making the Flash movie, he discovered time travel for real, went back in time, and went to put all these things in just to mess with us. Either way, well played, sir.
You meet Andy, and you immediately can understand why he's the perfect choice for this movie. It's his compassion, his priority in this film of finding the heart of the story.
I'm also excited to see Andy's version of the Speed Force. He happened to have done some doodles that I may or may not have taken and kept. They are literally unlike anything you've ever seen before.
All right. I'm intrigued.
Flash fact. Did you know that according to actual comic book canon, Superman is both a vegetarian and a Metallica fan? Which is, of course, impossible. But then again, he's Superman.
Batman lost his parents. Superman lost his planet. Harley Quinn lost her egg sandwich. But Barry, because he's got this ability to go back and manipulate time, he's the only one who can actually go and change his own personal story.
His mother was murdered, his father was framed and incarcerated, and all his journey from then was of a man trying to make things right.
And it sounds like a cliche, but script is everything. When I got to read Christina's first draft, I was just blown away.
The script has really captured his loquacity, his personality.
So you're fast. That feels like an oversimplification.
I fell in love with the
That
Flash
feels
when
like
I
an
read Flashpoint.
oversimplification.
The combination of giant spectacle, action, and fun with this incredibly personal, intimate story of a boy just trying to save his mum.
He's someone who has the power of changing the events of the past, but by doing so can deteriorate the very fabric of the space-time continuum.
The juxtaposition between his vulnerability and his immense power is really what's exciting about superheroes to me. Flash fact. The hippopotamus is faster than the human being. Beware.
What?
Every actor, every director, every writer brings something different to the character.
Barry as a character, and especially the way Ezra plays him, he's a guy with so much heart, so much humor. Spending time with Ezra is kind of like spending time with Barry Allen.
Really, I can feel his passion and his enthusiasm and his creativity.
He was born to play this role.
Flash fact. The first appearance of the multiverse in DC Comics is actually a Flash comic. Flash Comics number 123, The Flash of Two Worlds.
Time travel isn't simple. It's not always a straightforward case of go back and change one thing and another thing changes in the future.
This film is immensely important because if you look around at the DC Universe, obviously we have all of these characters that exist within their own bubbles. We even have now multiple iterations of the same story.
I'm Batman. And Batman. I'm Batman. Sounds like a cool guy.
This movie, by opening that door that Flashpoint did in the comics, all of these stories and characters can start to collide. Hello?
This should be impossible now.
It should be impossible now?
You don't know about the...
Oh my God, don't do this to me. I don't know about the what.
The cinematic multiverse is going to be born out of this movie. It's born out of Barry's story.
It blows our minds, the levels of possibility that exist within the context of this character in this story.
And that makes sense.
I can't wait for all of us to be able to sit down in a theater and enjoy these movies in the dark with a lot of people and with great snacks.
Yeah, that's nice.
So
that's
obviously I don't want to spoil too much of the movie. I want you to be
Spoil
surprised when you see it.
Give me like
something that I can show you, a little sneak peek.
Yes!
Oh my God.
You son of a bitch.
Sorry, that's my fault. It was an accident. It's not my personal playlist, but it might, yeah, that might have been my fault. Back to you, Andy.
So I'd like to share a couple of concept art drawings, and it's Barry Allen's new suit.
New suit! Okay. A little more streamlined.
As you can see, it's more organic.
Yeah.
You can see light embedded in it. It has been built by his friend Bruce Wayne this time.
Which one?
Flash fact. The first ever Batman movie is actually an unlicensed Batman Dracula movie made by Andy Warhol with a soundtrack by the Velvet Underground. It's unreleased, but there's 39 minutes that have been recovered, and I highly recommend watching them. They're extremely strange.
There are so many potential crossovers in the multiverse, so many cool things that you could do.
I would really love them to do a two-hander with Wonder Woman. I think they would solve a lot of problems, let me tell you.
I'd like to see Game of Thrones crossover. Instead of all the months that it takes traveling from Winterfell to King's Landing, it would happen in 2 seconds. Barry Allen in the Iron Throne.
I actually already have a weird behind-the-scenes DC Multiverse crossover. My best friend growing up is Rob Pattinson's older sister. So I've actually known the new Batman since he was 2 years old and in diapers.
I'd like the Flash to meet in the multiverse Nicolas Cage. Not the Nicolas Cage Superman that never was. I'd want the Flash to meet Nicolas Cage, the person in this world, who I believe probably does have the ability to transcend space-time. It's a real proposition.
It's a real proposition, he says. All right, so.
I also can't wait to hear more about The Flash. Thank you, Andy, Barbara, Christina,
Beyond
and
Batman.
Ezra. Fun fact, we all know there are several Flashes: Wally West, Jay Garrick, Bart Allen, and Barry Allen. Did you know when Barry isn't working to save the world as the Flash, he's working to save Central City as a police scientist? Okay, that's all for me right now. I'm going to turn this over to Jaden Rodriguez, and I'll see you back here soon.
G'day DC Fandome, I'm Jaden Rodriguez from Australia, and I'm so excited to be here with you all.
That threw me off.
I just
I'm
gotta
not
say
gonna lie.
that being a total superhero freak that I am, I'm totally loving being part of this epic DC event. And you can't talk about superheroes without talking about the man himself.
The man
Batman.
himself.
I mean, dude, can you imagine how awesome it
Wait
would
a
be to
minute.
be Batman?
Beyond
In fact, if there's anything better than
Batman.
watching Batman, it's watching two Batmans. Or Batmins. It doesn't matter.
What is this?
Two fan favorite Dark Knights who happen to reside in the opposite ends of the Bat spectrum.
Wait.
Terry, this is top priority.
Go ahead, Bruce.
A Wayne Powers deep space probe is receiving an anomalous communication. I'm patching it into you now.
Is that you?
Clearly, that's not me, Terry. But apparently, it's what passes for me on this Earth.
Whoa! Who's the dweeb?
That would be Robin's counterpart.
The Joker. No way. That's the Joker?
That's not the Joker. It's a Joker.
I don't know, Bruce. Your friend with the Liberty Bell hair said the Joker.
No matter which universe he's from, he's a vicious and deadly psychotic.
He's throwing fish at you right now.
One thing's for sure. This Joker could up his thug recruitment game.
Yeah, pick up a fish and start tossing already, slacker. Wait, is he stealing a fish? Oh, this has got to be the dumbest heist.
The fish snapping of the century! Careful you don't...
Hey, swell costume, by the way, Bruce.
Terry.
Must have taken forever to get the iron-on bat symbol just right.
Terry!
To the Batmobile!
Oh, this ought to be good.
Actually...
that ride's pretty sway, Bruce.
Don't let them catch you from behind.
What an odd thing to say.
That is a very odd thing to say.
Hey, Bruce, I just noticed something about your cowl.
Again, not my cowl. But what is it?
Are the eyebrows painted on?
Don't be. Oh, wait. They are.
You know, my great aunt does the same thing with her eyebrows. Totally works for Aunt Phyllis.
What the?
Now what's going on? Where's this?
I'm not sure. But whatever it is, it must be built on a hill.
Joker could really stand to run a comb through that wig, huh? Oh, easy, Boy Wonder. Let's not forget we're wearing elf shoes and support hose.
And who is he even shushing at this point?
What's with the 57 random telescopes lying around for no reason?
What is with the 57 random telescopes?
Things fishy here, Batman. Beautiful!
The Gotham High girls volleyball team's gonna be ticked when they find out their net was stolen.
Actually, I'm not sure which is more disconcerting. His trap, or the fact that these two can't seem to find their way out of it.
How about a fish fry?
Ooh, fish fry guy here is angling for a promotion. Settle down there, fish fry.
What
Wait a
is
minute.
this?
What is it?
Look at the Joker. Is it my imagination, or does he
have a mustache?
Now that is just not right.
What the hell is this? This is outstanding.
Wow, worst hot tub party ever. But on the bright side, Robin is already wearing his bathing suit.
I couldn't possibly deprive that poor hungry clam of its dinner.
Hold up! That's a clam?
Very touchy. Oh, boy, wonder what a succulent hors d'oeuvre you should make.
It really is quite unsettling.
Well, a giant man-eating clam is... Wait, you're talking about the mustache again, aren't you?
It's mesmerizing.
It's mesmerizing.
I would have gotten out of this in 2 seconds.
Aunt Phyllis could have gotten out of this in 2 seconds. By the way, Bruce, what do you feed paper mache?
Oh, what a hideous face!
Oh, be nice, Venus. Robin's sitting right next to you. You get it? 'Cause she was talking about... Never mind.
Mollusk? Some mollusk! Push yourself away, Robin.
Is it weird that part of me is rooting for the clam?
Him against the sign! Robin!
How many of you?
I was actually feeling bad for Robin, but then I saw those elf booties again, and well... Hey, what happened?
That's the end of the transmission.
What do we do?
Not sure, but I know what we won't do.
What's that?
We never tell anyone what we saw here today.
What we saw.
Seriously? Not even the mustache?
Never.
I can tell you're serious. Know how? Your eyebrows, very expressive on their own. Why you ever chose to paint?
Don't you start.
Oh, Batman Beyond's on DC Universe. Is that what that was about?
Batman has
announcing?
such a great sense of humor. Okay,
Oh, man,
devoted
okay.
fans teamed up to show out in force at the DC Fandome. Let's take a look at some of the best group cosplays, and coming up is a showdown like you've never seen before. Stay tuned for lots of fun and games with the Suicide Squad.
Oh, that's the new game. All right. We'll hang out for that as well for a little bit. That was great cosplay. Holy crap. That's really good. Cosplay is always a very interesting proposition because you see people that try really, really hard and do a really good job and put in the effort, and then you see people that just like buy a skin suit and then that's like their costume. And I think, I don't know. I feel like I appreciate cosplay with a lot of effort. Let's see. This stupid thing again. Is it gonna be the same bit?
Come on then, let's go.
At least it's different. So weird.
I like watching the stars. Orion and the plow.
The plow. What the fuck is this? Oh man.
Polaris. And the big triangular thing. I win!
Jesus. Alright. Oh, this is the movie. I thought this was going to be the game.
Even though we are in the Hall of Heroes,
Trailer?
I know that if
Did
I
they
was
film
ever
this
in
yet? I always
trouble,
forget.
I would call upon
I don't
this
think they
next
have.
group to help me out. As
That'd
you
be
know,
a terrible
director
idea.
James
Suicide
Gunn
Squad is
announced
not
in
heroes.
February that filming had wrapped for the Suicide Squad. And right now,
Oh,
he's
they
taken a
have.
break from the edit bay to be here with us
They did
to
film
discuss
it.
his vision for the film, answer fan questions, and have some insanely crazy fun with the cast. And of course, share some never-before-seen content with us.
A trailer, I hope, because that would be
This is amazing.
awesome.
I'm so excited to be here at DC Fandome with all the amazing DC fans. As many of you know, the Suicide Squad is by far the most fun I've ever had making a movie. I am still working hard on it every day,
cheating
from morning
whore.
till night, but we're having a great time creating
Fucking
something
James
incredibly
Gunn.
special for people.
Cheating whore.
And I'd like to take this break now to take some questions from you guys.
Hey James, when was the first time you ever read Suicide Squad as a comic book? And who was your favorite character?
This guy's
read
testing him.
John Ostrander's original run of Suicide Squad. So I remember reading the very first issue of that run and falling in love with the concept, with the characters.
They
I
cut
loved
out
the movie
the-
The Dirty Dozen.
They
that
cut out the
came
Comics
back
Code
in the
Authority
60s,
logo.
And
That's
this was
funny.
like a super villain version of The Dirty Dozen. And I loved the character of Amanda Waller, who was so different for the time, you know, in terms of being such a strong woman, but not kind of an anti-hero, but kind of bad, kind of good, not physically the same as everybody else you saw in
The
comic
most
books.
dangerous woman
and
in the
I
DC
just thought she
universe.
was so cool. And of course, I loved all the characters and Boomer and everybody. And I just had a great time reading that initial run.
My name is Maisha Kondakar, and I'm a loyal DC fan, and I'm making
Clearly.
this video from Takabandish. I have a question for James Gunn. Which DC character were you most excited to write about for the Suicide Squad movie, and why?
Meisha, I think the character that I was the most excited to write for was Harley Quinn. I've loved this character ever since
shocking.
Paul
He
Dini
likes
first put
Harley
her in
Quinn.
animated shows. I think that there's a sort of chaotic trickster god nature to her where she's just always going off in random directions. And as a writer, that's a really fun thing to deal with because she takes you in places where you
Gee,
don't
I
know
wonder who
you're
the
gonna go.
Suicide Squad
So a
movie is
lot
going to
of it
focus
was
on
me writing
again.
for Harley, and a lot of it was Harley doing some of the writing for me during the Suicide Squad.
Hey, I'm Jake from State Farm, and 75 the massive amounts of damage that you must have had the squad rack up in
Fucking
that one
Jake
scene.
from State
Can you
Farm.
confirm the number of crashes and explosions? You know, asking for a friend.
Hey, Jake, I cannot confirm the exact amount of explosions.
that an
and
ad
crashes,
spot?
But I will say that we have about as many explosions and crashes in this film as in any film ever. In fact, the guy who did all of our special effects on this film, Dan Sudik, who has done almost all of the Marvel movies, great movies, says
you
there are
filmed
more
some of them,
effects
jerk.
in this film than all of those movies he's done combined. So we have quite a huge special effect explosion extravaganza for you guys.
I think
You said Ostrander's run was influential, but what else inspired you to feature these under-the-radar characters?
That is an amazing question. One I'm excited to answer because
Are they live?
I actually had a long talk
It's so
with
hard
John
to tell if it's
Ostrander,
live or pre-recorded.
about this because he came and he visited the set, and I said I don't think of this movie so much as an adaptation of your comics. I think of this movie as a sequel to your comics, to your run in the comic book.
I always forget Vixen
What
was
would
on
John
Suicide
Ostrander
Squad.
be doing with these characters, you know, if it was 30 years after he first started? And so
40.
I think that it has the spirit and the lifeblood of the Ostrander books, but I also like to continuously take in new supervillains, other supervillains who have sometimes been in the Suicide Squad comics over the years, but also a lot of, you know, characters like Polka Dot Man and Ratcatcher, who have never been in the Suicide Squad, but who I
Please
just
tell
think
me
are
Polka
great
Dot Man is not in
DC
this fucking
villains
movie.
who have something to offer and that we could have put
Fucking
into the
Polka
movie.
Dot
So
Man.
that is where my biggest inspiration comes from.
Who were your favorite villains as a kid? And did working on this movie teach you anything new about these quote-unquote villains?
Wow, who are my favorite
they're
villains
definitely
growing
villains.
up? Well, I was
Not
a
quote,
huge
unquote.
Batman fan, and I'm going to tell you who my favorite villain was, and maybe it's a little embarrassing, but I'm not embarrassed by it. It was Batmite. I loved Batmite. I thought
That's
he
very
was hilarious
embarrassing. It's one of the worst
and
characters in the DC
creepy
canon.
as heck. So Batmite was definitely my favorite supervillain, and don't think I didn't think
No.
about putting the
Awful.
Batmite in the Suicide Squad because I did.
I saw the set photos of the Suicide Squad and I absolutely love the direction of the movie. But is it true that Flora Borg is playing Javelin Man? And if so, why? Also, is Nathan Fillion playing Blackguard?
Hey, Milan. So, is Flula playing Javelin Man? Well, his name isn't exactly Javelin Man, but in mere moments, we are going to see who Flula and Nathan are playing in the film. And I'll give you a hint. One of them you got pretty correct, and the other one you didn't get correct.
This Starfire?
And there's a lot of people all over the internet who have theories about who people are playing, and sometimes they've been right, and sometimes they've been wrong. And so I guess we're going to answer all those questions in a minute. But I will tell you one thing.
I'm not gonna lie, that looks awful. That looks like it's the...
is the funniest guy in the entire world, and incredibly strange. But he's become a good friend through all this, and he's a great guy. And Nathan, of course, has been in all my movies. He's already been a friend. Here it comes, the time that so many of you guys have been waiting for. Who is who in the squad? You've heard a lot of the actors that are in this movie. You don't know who they're playing. Maybe you have some good guesses. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're wrong. We'll have to see.
Let's see.
But here it is. Everything.
You know the deal. Successfully complete the mission, you get 10 years off your sentence.
Good, obviously. She was
Welcome to
fantastic.
Force X. These are your brothers and sisters for the next few days.
So they recast Rick Flag. Savant. Javelin. Shocking. Costumes are decent. Well, her costume. Polka Dot Man. Fucking shit. Ratcatcher. Ratcatcher 2, I'm sorry. Idris Elba. Bloodsport. Okay. King Shark. Mongao. Oh, wow. Thinker. Alright. I like her. Fucking Pete Davidson. A Pavilion. Hawk. God, Courtney's still Boomerang. John Cena! Peacemaker. Alright. I mean, Ratcatcher 2? This is only in theaters.
We are introducing the cast and the characters they're playing of the Suicide Squad. First of all, we have Idris Elba as Bloodsport. John Cena as Peacemaker. David Dastmalchian as Polka Dot Man.
Fucking Polka Dot Man.
Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang.
Again.
Nathan Fillion
Mongol?
as TDK. Lula Borg as Javelin.
Who else? TDK?
This is like a really messed up Brady bunch. Daniela Melchior is Ratcatcher 2. Pete Davidson is Blackguard. Yeah! Mei-Ling Ing as Mongao. Michael Rooker, unfortunately, is Savant.
Unfortunately.
I deal with the devil. Peter Capaldi as the Thinker. Sean Gunn is Weasel. Steve Agee is John Economos and our on-set King Shark. Alicia Braga as Sol Soria. Juan Diego Boto is General Presidente Silvio Luna. Real great guy. Joel Kinnaman is, of course, Rick Flag. Viola Davis is Amanda Waller. And, of course, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn.
Hey,
Still here, together again.
Good.
Good. Who the hell is TDK?
Are you excited to be a part of DC Fandome?
Yes.
Win!
Super excited. This is going to be great.
Well, we're going to have some fun here. We're going to have some competition, which is not fun unless there's somebody winning and somebody losing. And so I would like to have a couple of team leaders, and I think it only makes sense that we have the people in charge of the Suicide Squad, Viola Davis and Joel Kinnaman, as our team leaders.
Hey, team leaders!
And why don't you guys go ahead and let's pick teams.
Bloodsport.
Thanks. Thanks.
Definitely.
All right, I'll take my girl, Harley Quinn.
All right.
Yay!
I will take Savant.
Oh, good for you.
Wow.
What a bad mistake.
That is a bad pick. That is. And you guys have scenes together too. I can't believe you made that mistake.
I gotta tell you, you just made a big mistake.
Who's Rick Flag in the
John
first one?
Cena. I'll take John Cena.
I want to reassure you that that is a horrible decision.
No, I already know that.
I'm going to take my boy, King Shark.
Oh, it was the same
Okay,
dude.
I will take my man, Boomer, Jai Courtney.
All right.
Ratcatcher.
So it's 100% set in the same universe.
Ratcatcher 2.
2. I will take Flula Borg, the Javelin.
Yes. I guarantee we will lose. Yes.
I'm going to take Polka Dot Man.
Thank you. Yes.
Right now.
I'm gonna have to grab the Weasel.
Oh, good man.
That's not on Rooker's team. Yeah.
The Weasel.
Yes.
Is that everybody?
Out of names.
What about made me feel really bad.
Wait, there's left.
There's only
So
one left.
sad.
It feels like high school again.
Did someone?
It totally feels like high school.
This is what it was
Yeah,
like.
you're the thinker,
basketball
Violet.
team.
Yeah, the thinker.
Great idea.
Viola picks the thinker.
Nathan
You guys are
Fillion,
losing already.
DK.
Sorcery.
El Presidente. El
How is
Presidente.
DDK?
What about Mongo?
You got picked by Joel.
Yeah, thank you, Joe.
Good idea.
I'll just watch.
Pete, this is sad.
Victory cigarettes.
Oh man. Yeah. Okay. I was going to pick Blackguard. Okay.
That went well. I think that went really well.
And let's start off. We're going to go head to head, and we're going to start off with the team captains. Let's do Joel and Viola. I'm going to pick. This is a good question.
Okay.
I know both of you know so much about the lore of DC Comics. There's a multiple
Movie
choice,
costume's way better.
so you don't have to look terrible. Out of all the squad members, who are the only
Yeah, that's not
characters
him.
to have had their own comic series? There's 2 of them, and I'm gonna list 4 options: A, Harley Quinn and King Shark; B, Harley Quinn and Amanda Waller; C, Harley Quinn and Peacemaker; or D, Harley Quinn and Boomerang. Which 2 have had their own series?
Harley Quinn and Boomerang.
Harley Quinn and Peacemaker.
Boom! Yes!
Yes.
That is correct!
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Wow!
Even look. Even I knew that. Okay.
Oh, Viola Davis knows some shit. Shocking. Viola Davis knows some shit.
Polka Dot Man.
Polka Dot Man! Again?
Mr. Sean Gunn.
Weasel versus Polka Dot Man. Old friend.
How the hell does it? That's some nepotism for your ass, man. He always gets in his movies.
Hola. ¿Cómo están? How are you? I've got a question. What career military man probably wishes he'd never followed in his dad's footsteps?
Joaquin, the great Coachy Loco!
Rick Flag Jr. I had Super Grover. Is Super Grover?
It's not Super Grover.
Wrong.
I swear to God,
Wrong
Sean Gunn is in
canon.
every single James Gunn movie.
Points for creativity.
Some
Yeah, there's no
nepotism for your
multiple
ass.
choice. You just got to answer right away, and you have to have it be the right choice.
All right, we're gonna mute that. Let's see. There was a Wonder Woman trailer. Wonder Woman. Let's just go to YouTube first. There it is. 1 hour ago. Let's watch it.
This world is not yet ready for all that you will do.
Your time will come, Diana. And everything will be different.
Yeah, just Spider-Man-ing some lightning. It's cool. That was the end of the first trailer, teaser, whatever.
Citizens of the world, I'm here to change your life. Anything you want. Anything you dream of, you can have it. You look like you saw a ghost.
Because you died.
Diana, look at you. It's like not one day has passed.
She's immortal.
I don't want to be like anyone. I want to be an apex predator.
You've always had everything, while people like me have had nothing.
Well, now it's my turn. Get used to it.
Oh, shit.
I've never been one for rules. The answer is always more. The way I fly, they will never find us.
I forgot to tell you.
What?
Radar.
Will they show that up?
Fucking radar. Okay. Finally get to see Cheetah.
Barbara, what did you do?
Become a supervillain. I really want to know what the purpose of the armor is.
You know, I'm not so keen on this one. I figure you are, but you know what? I'm ready to go.
I think we can do better.
Parachute pants?
Yeah,
Does everybody parachute now?
All right. It looks good. Yeah. I mean, I'm in. It's Wonder Woman. Of course I'm in. But I just really want to know what the purpose of the armor is, because the armor is iconic from Kingdom Come, and that was what they call it. It was Amazonian like war armor or something. Like it was. They only put it on to go to war. So yeah, I'm interested. To see where this is going. So we have the Suicide Squad announcements as to who's who. We have the Wonder Woman trailer, the Gotham Knights game, which looks good. Not a day one buy for me, but that's just me. Sandman stuff. I might have to. Is the Sandman audiobook, audio drama, whatever they call it? Is it? It's free with your Audible trial. Maybe I'll do an Audible trial and listen to it. But yeah, seems pretty exciting as far as what they've announced so far. It's going to be interesting to see what else is coming today. There's still, I think, the Suicide Squad game is going to be announced. There is a secret, unless this Gotham Knights thing was the secret Montreal Games panel. Let's see. Let's just take a look at the schedule real quick. Schedule.dc. There it is. Yeah, so I missed that. There's that. So here we are here. Then there's Legacy of the Bat. The Joker put on a happy face. I'm not sure what that's going to be about. Jim Lee portfolio review, because who cares? Voices Behind the Cowl. Snyder Cut. That is at 4:30 p.m. Is that like, I don't know, is that local time or what? The Flash TV panel. There's still some stuff coming. All right, so might have to leave this on record and come back to this in another week for next week's episode. But that is going to be it for this one, since we've been at this for about 2 hours, and I don't want to just beat a dead horse. I'm not going to drop a 5-hour podcast. That's ridiculous. So we're gonna call it here, and then we're gonna be back next week. For those who watch live, thank you very much for hanging out. And for those who are listening after the fact, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you in the next one.